Have you ever paused to think about what it truly means to age with grace and purpose? What happens when you find yourself grappling with loneliness, loss, and the inevitable passage of time? This video isn't just about getting older. It's about the powerful journey of embracing the later years of life and living them to their fullest. You'll meet Jack Thompson, a 62-year-old man who has faced both the joys and heartaches that come with aging, from the loss of his beloved wife to the growing sense of isolation as his children build their own lives. Jack's story is a deeply personal one, yet it resonates with so many of us as we face similar challenges and triumphs as we grow older. Why should you stick around and watch this video to the end? Because Jack's experience is not just his own. It's a reflection of the universal experiences that many of us will inevitably face as we age. Through his journey, you'll learn how to cope with loss, find new connections, and build a fulfilling life even in solitude. You'll discover the invaluable wisdom he gained from his relationship with Laura, a woman who entered his life in unexpected ways and helped him navigate the complexities of aging with strength and resilience. Additionally, Jack's story sheds light on the tough decisions seniors often have to make, like the difficult choice of moving to a nursing home, and how to approach these decisions with peace, confidence, and an open heart. By the end of this video, you'll walk away with a deeper understanding of how to cherish the relationships that matter most, embrace independence, and take full control of your life as you grow older. Whether you're in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, Jack's story will inspire you to make the most of your later years, no matter the obstacles life may present. Don't miss out on the chance to gain valuable insights from someone who has lived through it all and emerged even stronger. If you haven't already, I recommend subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you won't miss any of my videos. Your support means the world to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading these important lessons by liking and sharing them with others. If you connect with the theme of this video, please leave a 1 in the comments. If not, feel free to comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's dive into the story. I had always imagined retiring at a time when I could finally relax and enjoy the fruits of my labor. I had planned for it meticulously, knowing that the future would eventually come. But, as life often does, it threw me an unexpected curveball. I had to retire earlier than I'd anticipated. Thankfully, I had always been mindful of my spending, keeping a tight grip on my finances and saving for a rainy day. So, financially, I was managing okay. But there was something I hadn't planned for, the heavy silence that now filled my life. There was a time when my family was my world. My son, Adam, and my daughter, Emily, both had their own families now. Their lives were stable, and they were flourishing in their ways. I was proud of them, of course, but a part of me longed for the days when the house was full of laughter and the pitter-patter of little feet. Over time, though, the house grew quieter. The energy that once filled it slowly dissipated. A few years ago, Sarah, my beloved wife, passed away after a long illness. That loss left a hole in my heart that never seemed to heal. As time passed, my children, who were once so close, became more absorbed in their own busy lives. They visited less and less, and with each passing day, I found myself alone more often than not. One afternoon, I sat on the sofa, surrounded by the stillness of my empty house. The silence seemed to swallow me whole. I could hear nothing but the beating of my own heart and the distant hum of the world outside. The rooms, once filled with life and warmth, now seemed to echo the loneliness I felt. I felt it deep within my bones, a pang of bitterness I couldn't ignore. As I sat there, trying to push those feelings aside, the phone rang. It was Adam. His voice came through, urgent and hurried. "Dad, are you staying home tonight? There's some urgent work, and I might not be able to come by," he said, his tone laced with worry. I felt a flicker of disappointment in my chest, but I tried to suppress it. I understood. Adam had a family of his own, a busy job, and a life to lead. He had responsibilities. I didn't want to burden him with my loneliness, so I replied with a forced calmness, "It's fine, Adam. Don't worry about me. Just take care of your things. I'm all right here." I hung up, feeling a hollow ache inside me. It was as if the world had slipped away, leaving me behind. I had worked so hard all those years, put my heart and soul into providing for my family, only to find that now, in my retirement, with Sarah gone, and the children living their own lives, I was left to face the quiet alone. The emptiness seemed to deepen with each passing day. The following day, my neighbor, John, stopped by for a visit. John and I were around the same age, and we had always enjoyed our conversations. But this time, there was an unspoken heaviness in the air. He sat down beside me, and after a few moments of silence, he sighed deeply. "So it's just you here now, huh?" he asked, looking around the room, his eyes scanning the emptiness that mirrored my feelings. I nodded without saying much. His words hung in the air like a weight. "Same for me," he continued, his voice tinged with a sadness that struck me to my core. "My wife is busy, and the kids are doing their own thing." I could feel the sorrow in his words, and it mirrored the aching emptiness I was experiencing. John's words about loneliness at this stage of life felt like a cold, hard truth that I couldn't escape. "You have to think about it. What if one day you're all alone?" he asked, his question cutting through the stillness like a knife. I could feel my heart drop into my stomach. The thought of being completely alone in this big house, with no one to talk to, no one to check in on me, filled me with dread. His question gnawed at me, repeated over and over in my mind. What if I'm left alone? What will I do? I tried to shake it off, but it was there, haunting me. A few days later, Emily came by with her son, Noah. She brought some of his favorite childhood dishes, perhaps hoping it would lead to a longer visit. But as soon as Emily stepped through the door, she rushed to explain, "Dad, I'm just dropping by to let Noah see you for a bit, but then I have to go pick up Tom." Her hurried tone, her eyes darting back and forth, and the worried look on Noah's face broke my heart. I tried to smile, to hide the ache in my chest, but it was impossible. "Go ahead, take care of what you need to do." "I'm fine here," I said, though the words felt empty as soon as they left my lips. Emily barely had time to sit down before she was up again, rushing out the door with Noah in tow. I stood at the door, watching them leave, the sound of their footsteps slowly fading away. The house felt even emptier now, the silence more oppressive. I couldn't stop the tears that welled up in my eyes, nor the feeling of abandonment that settled heavily in my heart. That night, as I lay in bed, the question from earlier echoed in my mind with painful clarity. What should I do if I'm left alone? I couldn't continue like this. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't keep drifting through this quiet, lonely existence. A few days later, I met up with John at the park for a walk. We sat on a bench, watching people go by, their lives moving in a blur around us. I turned to John, my heart heavy with all that had been weighing on me. "You were right about everything," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said. At our age, if we're left alone, how do we manage?" John nodded in understanding, his eyes soft with empathy. "I've thought about it too," he replied. "There are a few things we need to prepare for in advance. We can't wait until the last moment to worry," John said firmly, his voice steady, almost reassuring. "The most important thing is to make sure we're financially stable. We need enough to cover food and essentials so we're not left struggling." I nodded in agreement. The truth was undeniable. Without financial security, aging could become a brutal battle. I had always prided myself on being careful with my money, but I knew now that I needed to think about what the future would hold. Medical expenses, emergencies, and the unknowns that always seemed to arise at the most inconvenient times. John continued, "With no spouse or kids nearby, it's up to us to take care of ourselves." Those words rang true. It was a hard truth, but it was the reality we both faced. I felt a surge of determination rises within me. Maybe the future didn't have to be so bleak. Maybe there was still time to prepare, to take control, to build a plan that would allow me to live out my later years with dignity and purpose. But it was clear that I had to act now before the silence became more than I could bear. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Living alone, you come to realize that, despite all the love and care from your children, they can't always be there for you when you need them most. It's a hard truth, one that hits you like a cold gust of wind on an otherwise warm day. We have to become more independent, he said, and those words echoed deeply within me. We have to take care of ourselves, stay active, and never isolate ourselves. It was as if he was speaking directly to me. For so long, I had devoted my life to my children, caring for them, putting their needs before my own, but in doing so, I had neglected the quality of my own life. The years had passed, and all I had to show for it was a life spent in front of the television, sitting in a room that felt more like a prison than a home. I was living but not truly living, and the isolation was slowly taking its toll on me. The realization struck me like a slap in the face. I couldn't keep living this way. My health, my happiness, everything depended on me changing. It was so easy to sink into the comfort of routine and let time slip away unnoticed, but I knew deep down that this path would only lead to one thing: a slow decline into poor health and loneliness. I couldn't let that happen. So, I chose to change my habits, no matter how daunting it seemed at first. Each morning, I started walking to the park, just a short walk, but it was something. It was a step toward regaining control of my life. And then, in the evenings, I found solace in the community center, playing chess and chatting with other seniors. At first, it was awkward, and I felt the weight of loneliness trying to pull me back into my shell. But little by little, I built new friendships, and I could feel my life becoming richer and more fulfilling. Still, despite all the new activities, there was a gnawing emptiness that refused to go away. Every night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the same question haunted me. Who will be there for me when I'm sick? When I need someone to talk to or help me through the hard times? The silence in the room seemed to amplify those fears, and the more I thought about it, the more unsettled I became. I had always been content to live alone, but now I couldn't shake the thought that maybe I needed someone by my side, not to take care of me, but simply to be there. To share in the quiet moments and the burdens of getting older. But then, a wave of guilt would rush over me. My wife, Sarah, had only passed recently. I felt like any step toward finding companionship again would be a betrayal of her memory. How could I ever let go of her presence, her love? Yet, as much as I tried to ignore it, the loneliness within me grew stronger with each passing day. One day, after much hesitation, I found the courage to talk to my old friend John. He listened with a knowing look in his eyes, his silence speaking volumes. "I get it," he said softly, his voice filled with compassion. "After my wife passed, I felt the same way. We don't need someone to depend on, but someone to talk to, someone to share the highs and lows of life with. Someone to support us when we need it most." His words gave me a kind of comfort that I hadn't realized I was missing. He was right. I wasn't looking for someone to replace Sarah, but simply to ease the ache of solitude that had been growing inside me. Slowly, I began to open my heart to the idea of finding a companion. And that's when I met Margaret. She was an elderly woman who also lived alone, and her vibrant, optimistic personality was a breath of fresh air. We quickly bonded over our shared experiences of living far from our children, and the deep loneliness that came with it. Margaret had a spirit of adventure, a zest for life that I hadn't felt in years. She was always out exploring, visiting new places, and doing things that reminded me how much I had been missing out on. Her presence brought joy back into my life, and our conversations, filled with laughter and understanding, became something I looked forward to every day. As time went on, our relationship deepened. We began to do more together. Grocery shopping, cooking meals, taking walks in the park, and just enjoying each other's company. We never really labeled our connection, but it didn't need labeling. The bond we shared was enough. Margaret became my companion in every sense of the word, and our home, which had once felt so empty, was now filled with warmth, conversation, and the gentle rhythm of two lives intertwined. One night, when I fell ill with a fever, I was reminded just how much having someone by your side can mean. Margaret was by my side instantly, her concern for me shining through in every gesture. She rushed to get me medicine and cool me down with a damp cloth, her hands gentle yet firm in their care. She called Adam, urging him to take me to the hospital. When Adam arrived and saw Margaret so diligently caring for me, he was surprised. His worry for me was evident, but I reassured him, smiling faintly, "I didn't want to worry you. You've got your own life, and Margaret takes excellent care of me." Adam seemed torn, but his gratitude was clear. He insisted on taking me to the doctor, and though it was just a fever, the simple act of being cared for made all the difference. That night, as I lay in bed, I watched Margaret take care of everything. The house was no longer just a place where I existed. It had become a home, filled with love, tenderness, and companionship. The emptiness that once defined my life had been replaced by something far more meaningful. I realized that the companionship we shared wasn't about replacing what I had lost, but about finding a new kind of love, one that was quiet, steady, and comforting. It wasn't the passionate love of youth, but it was a love that brought peace, security, and warmth in the twilight of life. Margaret was no longer just a companion. She was the light that had pierced through my darkness, reminding me that even in old age, we don't have to be alone. As time passed, the complexities of life began to unfold in unexpected ways. One day, as I was quietly going about my daily routine, Margaret received a phone call that would change everything. Her son, her beloved child, was getting married, and he wanted her to come back and live with him and his new family. When Margaret shared the news with me, a surge of bitterness flooded my heart, but I fought to keep my emotions in check. I smiled weakly, trying to mask the sadness that was slowly consuming me. "Your son is getting married. That's wonderful news," I said, trying to sound supportive. "It's a good time for you to be with your children." But as Margaret looked at me, her eyes filled with uncertainty, I could see the internal battle waging within her. Her voice, barely above a whisper, betrayed her emotions. "But I've gotten used to being here with you," she said, the weight of her words hanging in the air like an unspoken plea. I knew at that moment that her heart was breaking, torn between the pull of family and the bond we had shared. The quiet intimacy of our life together had become a comfort to both of us, and the thought of being uprooted stirred a deep ache within me. Taking a deep breath, I tried to steady my thoughts, knowing I needed to be the one to make this easier for her. "You need to be with your son. As a mother, that's where you belong. I'll be fine here on my own. Don't worry about me," I said, though my voice trembled slightly as I spoke. Inside, though, the weight of those words felt like a heavy stone lodged in my chest. I wanted her to stay. I wanted to hold on to the warmth and the comfort of our shared time, but I knew deep down that this was what she needed. After days of quiet contemplation, Margaret decided to return to her son. I drove her to the bus stop, my heart a mixture of love, sadness, and resignation. Watching her board the bus, I felt as though a piece of my heart was being left behind. As the bus pulled away, I stood there frozen, feeling as though the world had suddenly gone silent, leaving me in a hollow emptiness. Returning to an empty house, the silence was deafening. It was a loneliness I hadn't anticipated, a feeling more profound than I could have ever imagined. I found myself grappling with the reality of what many elderly people must face: solitude. The thought of being alone in my later years began to seep into my mind, and tears welled up as I muttered to myself, struggling to make sense of the void that had overtaken me. Margaret's departure had left a hole that nothing seemed to fill. Each morning, I continued with my routine, exercising, meeting with old friends, but the absence of her companionship was palpable. My children, Adam and Emily, still checked in on me, but their lives were full, and I didn't want to burden them with the weight of my loneliness. They had their own families and their responsibilities, and though they made the effort, I could sense the distance between us. Every time they called, I reassured them, saying I was fine, but deep down, I felt the painful truth. The loneliness was growing, sinking deeper into my soul. It was one afternoon at the community center, surrounded by familiar faces but feeling more isolated than ever, that I overheard a conversation that would change the course of my future. A group of people was discussing the possibility of moving into a nursing home. It struck me like a bolt of lightning. Maybe this was the answer. Maybe this was the place where I could find peace and some semblance of connection. The next day, I called Adam, hoping he would understand. There was a long pause on the other end of the line before he spoke, his voice full of concern. "Dad, are you sure you want to move into a nursing home? Doesn't that place feel cold?" His words made me pause, but I knew what I had to say. "Adam, it's not about the coldness. It's about finding a place where I can truly be at peace for the long term. You and Emily have your own busy lives. I don't want to be a burden to you. At least in a nursing home, there are people around. I won't be so alone." Adam hesitated, and I could hear the worry in his voice as he promised to discuss it with Emily. A few days later, they came over, sitting on the couch, their faces drawn with concern. Emily spoke first, her voice thick with emotion. "Dad, we understand that it's hard for you to be on your own, but are you sure a nursing home is the right place? What if you feel even more isolated there?" Their concern warmed my heart, but I knew I had to stand firm. "You don't need to worry about me. I've thought this through. I need a place where I can enjoy my later years in peace. A nursing home isn't the worst option. It's not perfect, but it's better than being alone here. You both have your own lives to live, and I don't want to impose on that." Their silence spoke volumes, but after a long pause, they agreed. "Dad, if this is what you want, we'll respect your choice, but we'll visit you often," Adam promised. And I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I wasn't completely alone in this decision. A few months later, I moved into a nursing home in the suburbs. It was a beautiful place, with flower gardens, activity rooms, and plenty of other seniors around my age. On my first day, I took a walk around the yard and met Mr. Robinson, a long-term resident. He welcomed me with a warm smile and offered to show me around. He introduced me to a few new faces, making the transition a little easier. That evening, as I lay in my new bed, gazing out the window at the night sky, I felt a strange sense of calm. It wasn't home, and it wasn't the life I had envisioned, but it was a new beginning. I had made a few new friends, and the prospect of companionship, however small, eased the weight of my loneliness. 6 months passed, and I found my routine. I ate regularly, exercised, and spent time socializing with my new friends. I no longer faced the crushing solitude I had once feared. I had found a new rhythm, a new sense of purpose. Though it was not the life I had imagined, it was one I could live with, peaceful, connected, and, for the first time in a long while, filled with hope. Life had become a peaceful rhythm, filled with the simplicity of small pleasures. Playing chess, enjoying the quiet moments, and chatting with friends, those small daily routines had become my sanctuary. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of comfort and security that had been absent for years. Adam and Emily, my children, still called frequently, their voices filled with concern about my adjustment to living alone. They seemed to worry endlessly, even though I assured them every time, "I'm doing well, nothing's missing. You don't need to worry about me." I tried to ease their minds, but deep down, I knew they couldn't fully understand the peace I had found in solitude. I had learned to embrace it, to appreciate it, to feel grounded in it. But then, one afternoon, the world as I knew it shifted. After a quiet lunch, I sat in the sun, feeling the warmth on my face, letting the simplicity of the moment wash over me. The phone rang, and as I answered, I heard Adam's voice crackling through, filled with urgency. There was a tremor in his tone that made my chest tighten. "Dad, I've got some bad news," he said, his voice barely controlled. "Mrs. Robinson was in a car accident, and she's in the hospital." If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. The words hit me like a physical blow. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. The phone nearly slipped from my hand as shock paralyzed me. I had to steady myself, sitting on the edge of the chair, struggling to process the gravity of what he was saying. "What happened? How is she?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper, the panic beginning to take root. Adam's voice faltered as he spoke again. "I just got the news and rushed over. Do you want to come to the hospital?" I felt as though the ground beneath me had disappeared. The news of Mrs. Robinson, someone who had been a constant in my life, someone I had come to care for deeply, was almost too much to bear. At that moment, I couldn't think, couldn't reason. I hung up, calling the nursing home staff to arrange for transportation, my mind racing with thoughts I couldn't control. How could something so tragic happen to her now? The last time I saw her, I had smiled and told her to take care of herself, and now this. The image of her smiling face haunted me, and all I could think of was how fragile life truly was. When I arrived at the hospital, I saw Adam and Emily standing outside the emergency room. The look on their faces, so filled with worry, so deeply concerned, suddenly made everything feel too real. Adam helped me sit down, his hands shaking slightly as he guided me to the chair. "Dad," he said, his voice heavy with dread, "the doctors are doing everything they can, but the situation isn't looking good." The weight of his words crushed me. I could barely look at him, my heart pounding in my chest as I stared at the red light blinking above the surgical room door. All I could do was pray, hope against hope that Mrs. Robinson, the strong, resilient woman who had touched so many lives, would find a way to survive. The minutes dragged on, each one feeling like an eternity. Time seemed to slow, the air thick with worry and fear. Then, the door opened, and the doctor emerged. I almost lunged toward him, desperate for news, for some glimmer of hope. "How is she?" I asked, my voice a mere breath, my heart in my throat. The doctor's face was grim, his eyes exhausted. He shook his head, and I felt a cold seep into my bones. "The injuries are severe," he said softly. "Prepare for the worst." Those words were like a punch to the gut, leaving me breathless and numb. I could barely hold myself upright as Adam gently guided me back into the chair. I could feel the world spinning, everything around me blurring into a fog. And then, moments later, a nurse emerged, pushing Mrs. Robinson's still form down the hall. My heart lurched in my chest as I saw her, pale, unmoving, a shadow of the vibrant woman I had known. She had been full of life, full of spirit, and now she looked so fragile, so helpless. The sight of her like that shattered something deep inside me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I reached out instinctively, taking her cold hand in mine, feeling the stark contrast between her warmth and the ice-cold grip of her skin. "Please, Mrs. Robinson," I whispered, my voice breaking, my eyes filled with tears. "Please don't leave me. You promised. We promised we'd spend our lives together. You can't leave me now." I thought for a moment that she might hear me, that she might respond. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a brief second, I dared to hope. But no words came. A single tear escaped her eye, and it felt like a dagger to my heart. In that instant, my world crumbled. I knelt beside her, my hands trembling as I clutched her hand, tears falling uncontrollably. "Please," I cried, my voice thick with sorrow, "please don't go. I can't live without you. If you leave me, I don't know what I'll do." Adam and Emily stood silently by, their faces etched with sadness, their eyes filled with the same helplessness that overwhelmed me. They knew there was nothing they could say, nothing they could do to ease the pain I felt at that moment. That night, the doctor confirmed the worst. Mrs. Robinson's condition had worsened. She was now critical. I couldn't leave her side, not for a second. I stayed there, hoping, praying, silently willing her to find the strength to hold on. At one point, her eyes flickered open again, and her hand, so cold, reached for mine. I held it tightly, not wanting to let go. It was all I could do, all I had left to give. Her grip on my hand tightened, just a little more than before, and she struggled, her breath shallow and labored. I could see the fight in her face, the last ounce of strength trying to reach out. "Mr. Thompson, live well," she whispered, her voice barely a breath, so fragile, so quiet. And then, with one final soft exhale, her hand relaxed, and her tired eyes fluttered closed for the last time. A part of me wanted to scream, to beg her to wake up, to stay with me just a moment longer. But she was gone. In that painful, inevitable silence, I was frozen, utterly paralyzed by the crushing weight of the moment. My heart felt as though it had shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces, and I couldn't breathe. "Mrs. Robinson, don't go," I whispered, my voice thick with sorrow, full of desperation. "Please, don't leave me." But there was no answer. The absence of her presence filled the room, colder than any winter's night. I can't find the words to describe the emptiness that overwhelmed me then. It was as though my soul had been ripped from my body, leaving behind nothing but a hollow shell. Mrs. Robinson was more than just a friend. She was the last person who truly cared about me, who saw me for all that I was, and who loved me regardless. And now, she was gone. The world seemed crueler, colder somehow, and I was left to stumble through the days that followed in a haze, a darkness that clung to me, smothering any chance of joy or peace. The grief was suffocating, and no matter how many people tried to comfort me, it only seemed to make the loneliness worse. In the nursing home, the days blurred together. Everything seemed so empty without her, like there was no purpose to the hours that stretched endlessly before me. My friends, and my fellow residents, noticed the change in me. I didn't need them to say anything. I could see it in their eyes, the pity, the sadness they didn't know how to express. They sat with me, but no words of comfort could heal the wound that had been carved deep into my heart. At our age, losses are more than just memories. They are parts of ourselves, pieces of our soul that are irreplaceable. Once something is gone, no matter how hard we try to fill that gap, it remains forever empty. Adam and Emily came by often, bringing their young children in the hopes that their laughter, their innocence, might lighten my spirit. But no matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I wanted to find solace in their joy, it all felt so far away. My heart was a fortress, locked away behind walls of sorrow, and no matter how much love they offered, it couldn't break through. I would smile, but it was nothing more than a hollow gesture to reassure them that I was okay, when deep down, I was anything but. The silence between us grew louder with each passing day, a constant reminder of the space Mrs. Robinson had left behind. One afternoon, Adam sat beside me, his face etched with concern. He couldn't understand why I was still grieving so deeply, why I hadn't been able to move on, and in his gentle way, he tried to console me. "Dad, please don't be sad anymore. Mrs. Robinson wouldn't want you to feel like this." His words, though filled with love, stung. How could he understand? He hadn't experienced the depth of loss that I had. "Adam, there are things you just can't put into words," I said, my voice trembling. Letting go isn't something you can do easily. You and Emily are still young. You're still finding your way. But when someone you love with all your heart is suddenly gone, it feels like the sky itself has fallen. Like everything you've ever known is slipping through your fingers. Adam went quiet, sensing the weight of my words. Then, with great care, he reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "Dad, you still have us, your children, and your grandchildren. We'll always be here for you." His words, as warm and comforting as they were, could not fill the void I felt. They couldn't chase away the deep, suffocating loneliness that had taken root inside me. "I know you care, Adam," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "But sometimes, the emptiness in your heart is something only you can truly understand." A few days later, as I walked through the garden, trying to lose myself in the quiet beauty of nature, I saw a new resident. He was an older man, his face etched with sorrow, his eyes heavy with the same loneliness that had plagued me when I first arrived. I felt a pang of recognition, a connection to his pain. I walked over to him slowly, gently placing my hand on his shoulder, offering him the same comfort I had longed for myself. "Are you new here?" I asked, my voice soft. "Would you like to take a walk with me?" He looked at me, and though his lips didn't part to speak, I saw the gratitude in his eyes. We walked together, side by side, in the stillness of the garden. Neither of us spoke a word, but we didn't need to. There was a silent understanding between us, a recognition of the shared weight of our years and our losses. We were both just two souls, wandering through the final chapters of our lives, finding what comfort we could in the company of one another. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought of Mrs. Robinson again. Her voice, so soft and kind, seemed to echo in my mind. Her smile, her gentle touch, those moments had become the most precious memories of my life, and now they were all I had left of her. It was hard, so hard, to imagine a life without her in it. But as I closed my eyes, I realized something. Even though she was gone, a part of her would always be with me. Her love, her care, her kindness, they had left an indelible mark on my heart, a mark that could never be erased. And for the first time in a long time, as I lay there in the quiet, the weight of my loneliness didn't feel so heavy. It wasn't gone, but it had softened, just a little. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough for now. Although Mrs. Robinson's passing plunged me into a profound sadness, the lessons she imparted to me during her life will forever remain etched in my heart. She taught me something that transcends all else, the importance of cherishing every relationship we encounter, whether it's with family, friends, or even fleeting acquaintances. These bonds, however small or grand, are what fill the empty spaces in our hearts. They are what make life meaningful, providing us with connection, understanding, and comfort when the world feels too vast or too overwhelming. Each relationship is a thread in the tapestry of our lives, woven together by shared moments, laughter, struggles, and love. I can't help but feel that without these relationships, our existence would be far emptier. They are the anchors that ground us, and in a world where everything is transient, they are one of the few constants we can rely on. The morning after her passing, I found myself standing in the garden of the nursing home, the warmth of the sun on my face, yet my heart felt a profound emptiness. I was alone with my thoughts, the gentle breeze whispering through the trees. It was in that quiet moment that I truly understood. Nothing in this life lasts forever. But the love we share with others, the genuine moments we create together, will always remain. Those moments live on in our hearts, and when the storms of life hit, they serve as a source of strength, a reminder that we have lived fully, loved deeply, and given a piece of ourselves to others. That love, despite the passing of time, endures like a beacon in the dark, guiding us when we feel lost. Spiritual strength, I've come to realize, is what carries us through the hardest times. Even when life feels like an unrelenting weight, it is this internal strength, fueled by our love for others and the deep connections we've built, that propels us forward. The great Japanese author Haruki Murakami once said, "I always thought that people age slowly. In reality, people don't just age in a moment. In the blink of an eye, a day has passed, a year has ended, and in the blink of an eye, a lifetime has gone by. Don't think you're still young. One day, you suddenly realize that your youth is no longer there. The first gray hairs appear, and your face begins to show small wrinkles. Time goes by, and people indeed age in ways we never truly comprehend until it happens to us. It sneaks up, almost unnoticed, and suddenly, you find yourself standing at a place in life where time seems to have slipped away without your permission. The realization that you no longer wish to discuss your age comes slowly, like a quiet acknowledgement that you have crossed a threshold. As you grow older, the weight of time becomes impossible to ignore. When your parents begin to age and need your care, you realize, with a shock, that you have stepped beyond the boundary of youth. The world begins to treat you differently, calling you sir or ma'am, and you feel a pang of discomfort. In those moments, you can no longer deny the truth. You are no longer young. Some may say, "What's so scary about aging?" But the truth is, as soon as those words leave your lips, you feel the weight of them. It's a comforting lie, a way to reassure yourself that it's not as bad as it seems. Yet, deep inside, you can feel the tears beginning to form, unspoken, unnoticed. The world quiets around you, not because it lacks words, but because, in that silence, everyone knows that there are no words left that could offer true comfort. The realization sets in you've lived a lifetime, but in many ways, no one understands the journey you've walked. You may have a network of acquaintances, friends, colleagues, so many people in your life, but how many truly understand you? How many truly listen to the whispers of your soul? In the end, we often find ourselves alone in our thoughts, even when surrounded by others. The comfort that people offer can often feel hollow, a polite gesture meant to fill the space. But sometimes, instead of responding with empty words, we choose to remain silent. It's not out of bitterness, but rather out of recognition that only we, ourselves, can understand our hearts. The silence, then, becomes a sacred space, where we allow ourselves to listen to the rhythm of our thoughts and feel the pulse of our hearts. When night falls and the world drifts into a quiet slumber, you find peace in the sound of your heartbeat. Alone, yes, but not lonely. There's a certain freedom in that solitude, a comfort in knowing that you no longer need the validation of others. Their worries, their opinions, are no longer a weight upon your shoulders. You've come to trust yourself, to trust your character and judgment, more than the fleeting opinions of those around you. Time slips by, unnoticed at times, and as you age, you realize that the noise of the world grows quieter. Not because there's nothing left to say, but because there's nothing more that needs to be said. People, in their way, begin to understand that silence often speaks louder than words. How many of the people around you truly understand the depth of your journey? Few, if any. And at times, you may feel as though no one is truly listening. But perhaps that is okay. The words of comfort often mask the deeper truth, the truth we are unwilling to confront. So, you choose silence. It is in that stillness that you find clarity, a deeper connection with yourself. Only then can you hear your heart, your true thoughts, without the interference of others. Adversity often feels more prevalent than any advantage we might possess. Life is full of struggles, and sometimes it seems as though failure is the only option. But through all of it, we learn to accept that there are forces beyond our control. And in that acceptance, there is peace. You begin to realize that as long as you've given your best effort, you can hold your head high, free from shame. The self-respect you gain is not one of pride but of humility. You recognize the goodness within you, but instead of allowing it to inflate your ego, you carry it with grace. Humility becomes a part of your essence, and in turn, it makes you even more worthy of respect. As time passes, you can't help but notice the changes within yourself. They are subtle, almost imperceptible at times, but they are undeniable. You've transformed with age. And while the world continues to change around you, one thing becomes clear. You have become more than you ever thought possible. The years, the struggles, the joys, they have shaped you, and now you are stronger, wiser, and more aware of the beauty that life has to offer, no matter how fleeting. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Old age has been a relentless teacher, reshaping my spirit, deepening my understanding of life, and most profoundly, transforming my view of love. I once thought love was simple and pure, something that could be captured in the image of 2 people holding hands, never letting go, and growing old together, side by side, forever. I believed that love was the anchor that would keep us grounded and that nothing could shake it, no matter how time passed. But as the years have unfolded, I've come to see the truth, a bittersweet truth. Many relationships are fleeting, like the petals of a flower that bloom brightly but fade all too quickly. They are temporary, often more about the moments we share than the eternity we once imagined. Life moves so swiftly that the past, present, and future begin to blur together. We realize with a quiet ache that the people who once felt so irreplaceable, those who seemed like the pillars of our lives, have either changed or drifted away. Even the most cherished memories, once vibrant and full of life, begin to lose their color with time. The more you live, the more you come to understand that life, in all its beautiful complexity, can be both a source of joy and deep sorrow. There are times when accepting this truth feels impossible. In the depths of your soul, you struggle to make peace with it, yet there's an undeniable calm that comes with the realization that not everything is meant to remain unchanged. Some things, once perfect in our eyes, simply lose their luster, and we have no choice but to let them go. The things that once bothered you, the moments you would have spent criticizing or trying to change, start to fade into the background. You realize that some things just are, and no amount of wishing can alter their existence. Life doesn't ask for permission to change. It simply does. People will disappoint you, and you will disappoint yourself. It's hard to accept, but the truth is that we sometimes give too much of ourselves to others, and in return, we end up feeling empty, as though our kindness was taken for granted. People who once needed you now think your love and care are guaranteed, as though it's something they can always rely on. I've learned, sometimes painfully, that I must treat myself with more kindness. I must guard my heart more fiercely, and when necessary, be a little colder toward others to preserve my well-being. As time marches on, you begin to see that disappointment isn't just a fleeting feeling. It's a constant companion in the journey of life. The more you pour your heart into something, the more vulnerable you become to being let down. And yet, there's a strange beauty in that vulnerability, because it reminds you that you're still alive, still hoping, reaching for something better. With time, I've come to realize that it's foolish to place all your hopes in one place. Hope, though powerful, can also be a source of deep disappointment. It's in this realization that you begin to learn the delicate dance of hope and acceptance. There are moments when you must push forward with all your might, but there are others when you must know when to step back, take a breath, and simply let things unfold. The secret is learning how to balance the two, hope and disappointment. And when you do, you stop worrying so much about the outcome. What truly matters is not what you gain or lose, but how you carry yourself through it all, and how you keep moving forward with grace, no matter the challenges life throws your way. In the end, after everything, after all the love, loss, hope, and disappointment, I've come to understand one profound truth. The only way to avoid true failure is to rely on yourself. While it's comforting to have the support of others, there's a deeper, quieter strength that comes from being self-sufficient, from knowing that, in the end, you are the one who will always be there for you. When the world feels uncertain, and when you have no one else to turn to, you will discover just how strong you truly are. This is the moment when you rise, not because you have to, but because you realize you've always had the strength within you. And that, more than anything else, is the most precious gift you can give yourself. As we reach the end of this reflection, I invite you to think deeply about what you've learned from these life lessons. Aging teaches us so much about love, loss, hope, and the incredible strength that lies within us. What has resonated with you the most today? What one lesson will you take with you? And how do you plan to put it into practice in your own life? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share one thing you've learned and how it will influence your actions moving forward in the comments below. Your insights can inspire and encourage others who are on the same journey. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.